Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurureva Param Dhamma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trilokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva bandhuscha sakha Tvameva Tvameva vedya dravinam Tvameva Tvameva sarvam mama deva deva Tvameva sarvam mama deva deva. Yata sarvani bhutani pratibhanti stitani cha yatraivo pashamam yanti tasmai satyatmane namaha. So where are we in our text? You know, Mark?
It's number 36 in chapter 3, page 29.
Page 29. Which verse number?
36.
36. So we've finished with the Jivan Mukta section, pretty much. There may be a couple more verses, I can't remember. But so these are the quality. Am I in the right text in my mind? I think I am. Didn't we do Jivan Mukta? Qualities of the enlightened person, the person.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. There was dead silence. Jim, are you in the wrong text tonight? Anyway, so these qualifications of the person who's liberated while alive. And again, the most important thing is these are not to be used to measure other people. This is for us to check out our own progress. Now, these qualities come naturally to the liberated soul. For the rest of us, we work at it. So all of them imply a practice. Okay, Ganesh, will you help us out? Verse 36.
Drashtudarshanadrishyānam madhye yat darshanam sthitam vedanasya prakashasya drishyasya tamasasthatha vedanam yat anādyantam tadrupam paramatmanah. Of perception, which is light, and of the perceived, which is darkness, perception or cognition, which is without beginning and end, is the nature of the Supreme Self.
So now we've begun a discussion on what is the nature of the Supreme Self. This scripture uses the word prakasha, light. Our four great Mahavakyas, each one from one of the four Vedas. The first one is Prajnanam Brahma. Brahman, ultimate reality, is consciousness, meaning it is awareness. So, what is our experience? We always go back to our direct experience. My direct experience is I cognize stuff. May not know what it is I'm cognizing. That's actually the great mystery. what is this world, not what is God. But in that triple factor, here they've only done two, this dual factor, knower and the know. The knower is pure awareness. The knower is sentient. It has bhava, being. And with reference to me, everything that is knowable is jada, inert. Here he says darkness. What do we mean by that? When I look at the water glass on the table, the water glass is inert, it's insentient. I'm the conscious being that's illuminating it. When I look at the table is inert and insentient. I'm the conscious being that knows the table. We can go through all the objective world. Now, with reference to my body, I am the knower of my body. My thumb doesn't know me, I know my thumb. My elbow doesn't know me, I know my elbow. Now listen carefully. As I'm looking around in the room, if my body with reference to me is inert, why should I assume that your body is a conscious being? Think. Just because something moves doesn't mean it's sentient. Now, one of my favorite verses in Gita, chapter 2, verse 16, where Krishna basically says, the unreal has no being. There is no non-being for the real. He plays with these two words, sat and bhava. Sat means something that exists, that is. Bhava means being. Well, I'm a conscious being. I'm sensitive. I'm me. What that verse says is, well, let's first of all put that on the shelf. Talk about our ordinary understanding. We normally divide the world into things and beings. The chair is a thing, the table is a thing, Shilpa is a being, a dog is a being. Things and beings. What makes them beings? Well, they're alive. They have bhava. And we talk about things that are real and unreal. A chair exists, but the child of a barren woman, that's imagination. Castles in the air, imagination. Horns of a hare, imagination. They don't really exist. So what this verse in Gita says, only being really exists. There is no non-being for what is real, for what has bhava, what has being. So this particular verse is riffing on the same idea. What this scripture is going to thunder is all objective phenomena without exception. It's just mind. And its nature is pratibimba, like reflections in a mirror. Mithya, illusion. Vaitatya, false. It has no real existence. Only being has existence. But being is always experienced as the subject. Pure awareness. Now, some of us have studied the Mandukya Upanishad. Who here has studied Mandukya? I know Priya has. Anybody else?
I have.
I have.
Great. Okay. So we have 4 chapters. Well, first of all, Mandukya is very short. It's only got 12 mantras. It is traditionally studied with what we call the Gaudapada Karika. Gaudapada was Shankara's grandfather guru. Shankara's guru was Govindapada. Govindapada's guru was Gaudapada. A Karika is a gloss. Gloss is like notes in the margins. It's not fleshed out like a full bhashya commentary. And Gaudapada has written a 4-chapter gloss on Mandukya. Shankara then, by the way, wrote a full bhashya commentary on it. So the first chapter is called the Agama Prakarana. And that's where Gaudapada does these brief comments on all 12 verses or mantras of the Upanishad. The second chapter is called Vaitatya, falseness. Now, in
Sorry,
the first,
Jim, did you
Pardon me?
already, can you repeat what you said the first chapter was?
Agama Prakarana, the
What is it?
scriptural portion.
Okay,
First chapter, we go through all 12 mantras, and Gaudapada has his gloss on the mantras themselves.
okay,
The second chapter, the scripture's done. This is other stuff. So in the first chapter, to summarize one of its major ideas, we have Ma, and silence, the 4 parts of Om. Is the waking state. U is the dream state. Ma is the deep sleep state. And the silence is Brahman, the consciousness in which these 3 states rise and turn. It's not another mind state. A lot of people get confused. Turiya means the 4th. It's just the 4th in our discussion. 4th topic under discussion. It's not a 4th mind state. You have 3 mind states: waking, dream, deep sleep. In the second chapter, Gaudapada says, well, actually, you really only have 2 mind states: deep sleep and dream. You have your nighttime dream, and you've got your daytime dream. And he talks about how the phenomena we perceive in the dream state is Vaitatya, it's false. Because it is imagination. It's just things conjured by the mind. And then in the fourth Karika, he says this outrageous statement. In the waking state, the objective world is quite unreal. And the proof of its unreality is that it is seen. What? We always think seeing is believing. But Gaudapada says, only the seer is real. If it is knowable, seeable, cognizable, subject, object, all the objects are mithya, illusion. Vaipatya, false. Jada, inert, not senge. In the beginning, we start the spiritual path. We think the objective world is real and God is a mystery. Someday I hope to realize the self and I will know God. Right now it's a mystery. In the end, it's exactly the opposite. The self is the only thing you will ever know absolutely. When are you ever not you? It's the only thing that is absolutely undeniable. It is the only thing that cannot be negated. Our philosophical definition of reality is that which is never subject to negation. How do I determine that the dream is unreal? I wake up, I negate it. Poof, it's gone. And in that second chapter of Mandukya, he ruthlessly examines every supposition we have by which we sloppily believe that the phenomenal world is real. And he shows how it's not reasonable. Only I is real. But because of ignorance, like in the dream, my mind imagines a world of name and form and inhabits it with a dream body. And then I have feelings and reactions because to the dreamer, the dream world seems real. Its unreality is made evident by waking up, which means I have negated it. It's no longer available. So, second chapter of Mandukya, thunders. This world is no different. And the individual ego that runs around in this world and gets all upset by is not real. It comes about like the dream ego. The waking state, the dream state. And when I say dream here, I mean LSD, ayahuasca, microdosing, whatever it is that is happening. Unreal. Unreal. Deep sleep is cognizable. You know you've slept. You wake up in the morning, go, oh, I slept so soundly, I can't remember a thing. But you are not an illusion. This prakasha, this light, this pure sentience, which is both sat and bhava. It is, it exists, and it is sentient. It has being. God is not an it, God is a who. Meaning, consciousness is bhava, being. Many people just kind of like gloss over this shloka in Gita. It's one of the most profound. Chapter 2, verse 16. I invite you, learn it, maybe read commentary on it, meditate on it. It's incredibly important. Any thoughts on this?
In what sense is the self all-pervading if the objective world in its entirety is false?
Do you pervade your dream microcosmically?
Not really, I seem.
What part of the dream is not made up of you?
Oh, okay, no part of it.
So all of this, I mean, we say Vaithatya false, we say Mithya illusion, but then we also say Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. All this is verily Brahma. Just like none of the names and forms in the dream are real, they're just imagined. But every name and form in the dream is you, appearing as a name and form. Now,
Jim,
hang on, one thing and then I'll get to you. Listen very carefully. Do you incarnate into the dream? Are you in the dream or is the dream in you? Vedanta will thunder the doctrine of Ajati. You were never born. This body, this ego sense, you have not incarnated into the body. The body is in you. All right, Shweta, what's your question?
well, I wanted to say, I mean, it makes sense, But the difficulty that I have with these ideas, if I'm being honest about it, is that I keep looking for a point that, then what is the point of this illusion? I mean, why should it happen at all?
Okay, and so your issue here is you are trying to attribute to the infinite anthropomorphic qualities.
Yes, that's my
Then have
issue.
to have a point.
Yeah, that is the part that I find very difficult to accept, because I feel that I have based my entire life on the existence, like that there should be some point and I need to find it. And
Well, there's
now
a
it
point.
seems,
There's a point to human life. And the
which
point
is
to
to,
human life is for you to rediscover your essential nature. The
okay,
dharma of a human being is God consciousness. It's moksha. And that has two meanings. The self in you is already free, but from the standpoint of the human mind, you are in this process of moving toward liberation. That's the point.
okay.
My favorite metaphor for all this is puberty, believe it or not. What's
How
the
so?
point of puberty? Nobody gets anything out of it. It's just something that nature does with our bodies. Nobody chooses it even. When you make a whole lot of choices because of it. But this is the Dharma, always moving the human mind towards the infinite. It's an inevitability. Everybody makes it. Nobody's left behind. What's the point? Well, what's the point of a daisy? Comes out of the ground, it blooms as this lovely flower and then withers and dies. What's the point?
That's actually that's part of the question. It's not just about me, right? But everything. I mean, I keep wanting to see where this is all going. And like you said,
that is attributing to the divine anthropomorphic qualities, because the human mind, one of its functions is causation hunting. Nothing wrong with it. It's how we've got science. It's how we rediscover things. It's how we improve the human condition on a material plane. What is the cause of this? What is the effect of that? I'm not saying that's wrong or bad, but it is a function of the human mind. Bears don't go causation hunting. Giant redwoods don't go causation hunting. I have yet to meet a tree that's asked the question, what's the point? Yet is it any less one of God's most beautiful creations? So the yogi has to learn to live with mystery. So getting back to this whole point about the world being illusion, the world is nothing but the outpicturing of collective belief systems, essentially, sankalpa. It's the world that's the mystery, not God.
Are you saying God is not the mystery because it is just consciousness, and we experience
God is
everything?
absolute and absolutely knowable.
Okay.
It's the world that we can't know fully.
Well, yeah.
Always are interpreting it through the mind, and it's always morphing and it's changing, and you're not really ever sure what's really out there.
We perceive about 1% of what's around us anyways. So yeah.
I mean, latest thing in science that I've become aware of that just baffles me: dark matter and dark energy. Why is the expanding universe accelerating? I don't know. And no one can tell me. Mystery. Mystery. Where does everything in a black hole go? I don't know. There is a book in the Hebrew Bible called Job, the book of Job. Anybody here familiar with the book of Job?
Yes.
So at the end of it, I mean, there's a lot of symbolic meaning, but Job says to God, why? Why me? Because he's had all this trouble. Trevor, do you remember what God says?
Were you there when I created the mountains? And it goes on into like.
Yes, yes. And as far as high as the heavens are above the earth, so are my ways above your ways. Can an ant understand nuclear physics? Is an ant even aware of the elephant? So we need to be humble and be comfortable with mystery. Doesn't mean not to inquire into the things that are knowable, but things like the great why. What's the point? We have to make sure that we're not attributing to God human motivations. Very, very good question, and completely unsatisfying. I'm sorry, Shweta.
No, that was useful. I think also what you said about the sense of mystery is an important practice. Like I was recently, I've been reading this book. It's called My Husband and Other Animals. It's written by a woman. It's really nice. I'll bring it for you if I come there. So it's about this woman whose husband is he studies animals well, and she has all these really enchanting stories about different things about animals. And I don't want to take the class off on a tangent, but when you talked about this sense of mystery and wonder, my mind went to that, because somehow I feel that, maybe I'm focusing on some very, very narrow sliver of existence and, trying to answer the questions in that frame, whereas there is so much else. And if I'm not sensitive to that.
But the great impetus of the human psyche is, what is my purpose? What is the meaning of my life?
Yes,
That
but
is
this
an
seems,
answerable question.
yes, that's where I'm coming from, right? But I feel that within this frame, I cannot answer this question.
All right, let's go on, please. Next verse, please.
Vedya Vedana Vedritva Rupatrayamidam Puram Yatro Detyas Nirvikaram Niranjanam Yatsada Bhati Satrupam Tat Rupam Paramatmanah. Where this abode or body, which is constituted of the three characteristics of the known, knowledge, and the knower, rises and sets, and which shines forever in the form of pure existence, immutable and without stain. That
I
is the
missed
name.
those words. Say it, start it again, please.
Where this abode or body, which is constituted of the three characteristics of the known, knowledge, and the knower, rises and sets, and which shines forever in the form of pure existence, immutable and without stain. That is the nature of the Supreme Self.
Yes. So consciousness strikes this amazing thing called the human intellect, like sunlight hitting a prism. And just as the prism then refracts the sunlight into the spectrum, underneath you put a white piece of paper, you see the rainbow. When consciousness strikes the subtle intellect, it refracts into the triputi, the triple factor. The individual knower, as Swamiji used to say, the means of knowledge, the Brahman, the knowing, and the object known. The Buddhists use the term dependent origination. Have any of you heard that before?
I've heard that.
So that individual knower of the world and the objects it knows arise together. Example, I, Jim, through seeing, cognize the table. Knower, knowing, and known. I, Jim, through hearing, cognize the traffic. Knower, knowing, and known. Go through all the senses. I, Jim, through manas, mind, means of knowledge, know feelings and judgments, objects of knowledge. I, Jim, through buddhi, intellect, means of knowledge, know thoughts, images, memory. So we have gross forms of the triple factor and subtle forms of the triple factor. But this individual knower and all means of knowledge and the perception of all phenomena occurs in awareness. That whole phenomena is something known by me. So this arises in pure being as illumined. Now the whole thing folds into its seed form in deep sleep. There's no knower, knowing, and known in deep sleep. What objects did you see in deep sleep? I don't know. Did you see, hear, taste, touch, or smell in deep sleep? I don't know. Did you have a ego in deep sleep? I don't know. No, everything's gone. Folded up into the darkness of unconsciousness. And then in the dream state and the waking state, the Vikshepa Shakti, the projecting power of the mind. Now, some philosophers explore the question. So, Trevor, do you see the candle on the table?
Yes.
And Shilpa, do you see the candle on the table? Yeah. Do you have any way of verifying what your sensory experience is and what his sensory experience is identical? There's no way to actually verify. And in fact, our senses never really touch an objective world. We only get data perceived through the senses. Now, whatever it is that you're experiencing that you call an off-white candle, you experience could be something completely different, but you're calling it an off-white candle too. And if you start to explore, you see some woman on the street and you think, oh my God, she's just really a plain and homely person. Not to her children, she's mommy. Some of you will listen to beautiful classic Karnataka singing, or if you're a Westerner, you go to the opera. That's beautiful. Westerners, especially if they listen to Chinese opera. God, I just don't get it. So, our minds, to an incredible degree, create what it is we actually experience. Now, what's the point of this, to use Shweta's idea? Don't take your own mind too seriously. You hear this in pop psychology all the time. Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Many of us are just stuck on having to be right in an argument or a discussion. You people never have that problem. But if you quit believing your own mind so much, if you allow the world to have some mystery, you could not take yourself so damn seriously. Because there's only one thing you will ever know for sure. That's aham. It can be a very useful thing. All right, next verse, please.
इति श्री वासिष्ठ संग्रहे उत्पत्तिक्रमो नाम तृतीय सर्गः. The next chapter, चतुर्थ सर्गः लीलोपाख्यानं देवी वरप्राप्तिः. वसिष्ठ उवाच अत्रेदं
What does
मण्डपा.
the chapter heading mean? Does it say what it is?
Yeah, it's the story of Leela, the attainment of the boon from the goddess.
Okay, now, this is a great story, and we have to understand that there's some symbolism right away. What does the term or the word Leela mean? Play. Now, the word Leela in Sanskrit has the same dual meaning as the word play in English. So children can go over into the park and they can play ball, like a sporting event. Or I can go to Berkeley Repertory Theater and I can go see a play, a theatrical presentation. Two meanings of the word play. Leela also has the same two meanings. Now, it happens to be the name of the character in this story. Begin to see why. All right, going on. Tell us the story, Ganesh.
Vasishtha uvacha atredam mandapakyanam chitta vishrantitam shruno padmo nama nrupa kaschid Shriman asit vivekavan tasyasit subhagha bharya Leela nama pativrata. You hear in this respect a temple legend which gives peace of mind. There was a certain king by name Padma, wealthy and possessed of discrimination. He had a charming wife called Leela, who was devoted to her husband.
So we start off the story. Once upon a time, there was this couple, King Padma and his wife Leela. Let's see what happens to them. Going on.
Saikada chintyamasa Saikada chintayamasa pranebhyopi priyah patih Yauvanollasavan Shriman Katham Syat Ajaramarah. She thought once, my husband is dearer to me than my life. He is possessed of the delights of youth and is prosperous. How may he be ever young and deathless?
So now, in modern times, only boys are interested in sex and objectify women's bodies. Girls never do that. But in the old-timey days, the women did too. She thinks he's a stud. Beautiful. And as an old daughter of a minister used to say to me, dear, next to the Holy Spirit, money is the greatest comforter. So not only is he a stud, but he's rich. So she wants him to stay that way. So when they do the mufti pufti, it's really enjoyable. Of course, you women are also very pure. You never have thoughts like this, I'm sure. All right, going on.
Tapo japayamai nunam samasta siddhi siddhaya samprapyante maratvam tu nakatham chana labhyate evam dvijamukhat shrutva chintayamasa sa punah. All successful accomplishments are indeed attained by religious austerity, repetition of sacred words, and self-control, but immortality is not obtained on any account. Having heard thus from the mouth of Brahmanas, she again reflected thus.
So through tapas, austerities, mantras, gems, much of dharma can be blunted in this world. But unfortunately, nobody gets out alive. I had a student who was sitting right there on the couch. I can't remember what book he was reading, but it was about Kriya yogis, I think, who up in the Himalayas, they do these Kriyas and they're able to live for 400 years. And he said, oh, Jim, I would really like to do that. And so I asked him, what happens in year 401? You're dead. You're just as dead as the person who dies at 80 or 90 or 15, if it's an accident. Nobody gets out alive. That's Ishvara's sankalpa. She's not happy with this. So she's got this anxiety. I'm afraid he's going to die. So let's see what she does about it. Going on.
Maranam bharturagre me yadi daivat bhavishyati tatsarva dukha nirmukta samsthasye sukhamatmani. If my death will happen before my husband's by destiny, then freed from all agony, I shall happily rest in the self.
So she says, there are a bunch of possibilities. He could die first, I could die first, or we both get run over by the same elephant at the same time. So in this verse, she's saying, if I die before he does, it's okay. It's okay. I won't be stressed out by that. But let's see how she feels if he dies first. Next verse.
Yadyasau mriyate purvam tajjivona grihat bahi yatha gachet tathopasya maya devi saraswati. If he dies earlier, his soul may not go out of its habitation. Thus should the goddess Saraswati be worshipped by me.
So she decides to worship Saraswati to achieve a boon so that she can keep her husband's soul in the body indefinitely. Now, we have to be very careful here. This idea of propitiating a god or a goddess in order to get a boon so you can get what you want is primarily a literary device. It's a way in which we can carry the story on in literature. It is not a religious or spiritual practice I would recommend. And a lot of people have wasted a lot of time and been incredibly disappointed because they can't get God to do what they want them to do. I like to say, God is not your errand boy or housemaid. It's not God's job to do floors or windows. Our job is to seek God's will. Do what we think God would have us do. Not for us to try to be magical. Try to make a God do our will. Any questions about this? And we have this literary device that occurs in so much of the spiritual literature. You'll understand what I mean by literary device? Okay, so with that in mind, going on.
Iti nishchitya sa natham anupvaiva varangana yatha shastram chakarogram tapo niyamama. Having resolved thus, that lovely woman, without even telling her husband, performs severe religious austerity according to scriptures, betaking herself to restraint her religious vows.
So she doesn't tell her husband she's going to do it. She secretly does this very austere tapas in order to propitiate Saraswati and get a boon. Going on.
Tushta Bhagavati Praha Grahan Parami Sitam. Grihana Varamipsitam Devim Stutva Tato Lila Varadvayam Ayachata. The goddess who was pleased said, "Receive the boon desired by you." Then, having worshipped the goddess by hymns, Leela asked for 2 boons.
So she does these austerities. She's propitiated the goddess who shows up and says, "I am pleased with your tapas. Ask me what you want." You get 2 boons. Going on.
Bharturjivo videhasya mayasid nijamandapat yadaham prarthaye tvam cha tadame dehi darshanam. May the soul of my husband, separated from the body, not depart from its temple or habitation. Whenever I pray for you, give me your vision.
So the 2 boons are, number 1, when he dies, don't let his soul leave. Let it stay in the body. I don't want him to die. And when I need you, show up. Let me rub the magic lamp and Saraswati comes. All right, going on.
Etat paradvayam labdhva babhuvananda dharini kale bahutithe yate bharta tasya mamaraha. Having obtained these 2 boons, she became the possessor of happiness. After the lapse of several autumns, her husband did indeed die.
So she keeps this a secret, and time passes, and after several years, Padma dies. Oops. Let's see what happens. Going on.
Devyagnya tadaragni shoka santapa pidita shavi bhutam niveshyatha bhartaram pushpakhandake dukhat ahuyasa devi uvacha Vrishadukkhita. Then the queen, afflicted by the torment of sorrow, having placed her husband, who had become a corpse, in the bed of flowers, is instructed by the goddess, and calling the goddess in agony, told as follows, greatly distressed.
So she is instructed by the goddess to perform the funerary rites in a very unusual way. She puts Padma's corpse on a bed of flowers, no funeral pyre. And then she asks the goddess, what's next? Going on. She's very, very upset about all this, by the way. Going on.
For Mama Vasishtha Bharta Kim Karotyatha Kidrishah Samipam Nayamam Tasya Naika Shaknomi Jivitam. Where did my husband reside? What does he do? Of what nature is he? Lead me to him. I'm not able to live alone.
So she's so distraught. Where is he? Where has he gone? Okay, I got a corpse here, but that's not he. Take me to where he is. So again, it's a literary device for us to look at this great human question. One of our most famous Upanishads is the Katha Upanishad, Katha Upanishad. And the young boy Nachiketas goes down to the palace of Yamaraj, Lord Yama, Lord of Death. And there's kind of a story that happens, and he gets Yama to answer his questions. And the third one, which sparks the whole teaching, he says, when a person dies, are they or are they not? What happens? Is it just lights out? Is there something that goes beyond the physical body? What happens? It's the great mystery. It's the great mystery. And if we don't have an answer that's satisfying to us, then the death of our loved ones is excruciating, and our own mortality is terrifying. So it's an important question to deal with. Where did he go? Or did he go anywhere? All right, going on.
Eva mukta tada devi brahma tattvam upadishat. Thus addressed, the goddess then taught Leela the truth of Brahman, the supreme spirit or ultimate reality.
Yes. So this becomes an opportunity for the goddess. It's I guess what they call a teaching moment. It's become a teaching moment for her to be able to show and share with Leela the truth of Brahman, the truth of ultimate reality. All right, I'm going to quit a little early tonight because I don't want to chop off right in the middle of the teaching. It gets really good, very deep, very fast in the next verses. So we have a few more minutes. Does anybody have any questions or comments before we wrap up tonight? Justin, you're always good for a question or a comment.
Sorry, I was on mute. You're right, I am. I'm trying to listen more. But I always thought Sat was Bing because I heard Sat Chit Ananda, Bing, consciousness, bliss, is what it stood for.
Existence.
Existence,
Sat is the
not Bing.
participle of the verb to be, like is.
Okay,
Something that is. No,
and
it's
Bhava
these
is
words
Bhava
they have layers of
Bhava. Yeah, okay. But is Bhava Bhava?
yes, Bhava, Bhava.
Okay. I'll look that up too in that dictionary you have. Thanks.
And go check out, it's chapter 2, verse 16 in Gita, where he plays.
Yes, I was going to read that from Nicolananda's tonight after we're done.
Yeah.
So I like his translation a lot.
Anybody else? Okay, we'll quit here then. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishtha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om.